All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us today. Joining us now, we have Mr. Dan Sullivan. He is a Republican running for District 21. Of course, this is State Senator Paul Bookout's former State Senator Paul Bookout's seat. Dan, thank you so much for being on the program, sir, taking the time out of your day.
I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you for inviting me, and look forward to meeting with you several times in the next week or two.
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, why you wanted to run, what you've done in your past. Go ahead and just enlighten our audience.
Sure, I appreciate the opportunity. I came to ASU in 1970. I lived in St. Louis, and ASU recruited me to come down as a point guard to complement several of the good players. Alan Pruitt one, John Belcher, several. Coached in Caraway, Arkansas for 3 years after that, and met a lot of good folks over there in Valley View at the schools there, and West Side and Lake City. I left in 1975 and coached college basketball in Missouri for several years. Married Maria Stewart at that time. Maria's from Monette, and we moved to Mississippi. We lived for a few years there and taught school. Eventually moved back to Jonesboro in 1996 and taught school with the Jonesboro schools. Eventually the principal at South Elementary. Jonesboro started an alternative program with the 8 county school districts, and the superintendents and Rivendell approached me about coming to be the principal at the alternative school there. Helped start that program of Success School. As a matter of fact, Maria was the one that came up with the name for Success School. And then on to Ascent in 2004. Ascent Children's Health Services. We have 10 clinics around the state providing therapy services for children with multiple disabilities. We have a clinic close by here in Jonesboro, one in Paragould and Truman. The rest are around the state, and I am the CEO of that company. I also work with the Behavioral Health Provider Association and the Child Health Management Provider Association. And it's in that capacity that I've been involved with legislative affairs for the past 10 years.
Wow. So you're down in Little Rock quite a bit.
Well, matter of fact, I was down there yesterday.
Yeah. A lot of people were. How did that go, by the way? How was the filing?
Really good, thank you. And matter of fact, when I left that, they had the Right to Life ceremony or a gathering. Their state Right to Life meeting was yesterday. And I met with a friend of mine who helped pass the legislation up there, the most recent legislation a few years ago, to do that. We had a nice rally up there and enjoyed meeting with all those folks. So you went into Right to Life, so let's just go there. I mean, sure.
You obviously you're a pro-life guy. That's obviously something that's very important to, I think, a lot of people in this area, but in the past it hasn't been quite so much for their representatives from this area if you look at the last session. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm absolutely Right to Life. Have been for a long time when the issue really came out. Just very strong pro-life and several conservative issues. I'll pretty much up the line on all the conservative issues, whether it's gun rights, I'm a concealed carry permit holder, all those issues. But yes, I support the Right to Life, absolutely.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you're running as a Republican. Do you worry about that? Is Northeast Arkansas ready for a Republican representative? Because there is a stigma around this area still, it seems. I don't believe in conservative Democrats. I believe there are conservative Democrat voters who are misinformed. I think they should be voting somewhere else, but they're not getting the bang for their buck because it gets down there and it's all about party lines, in my opinion. What do you say to that, Dan?
There's going to be a big shift. The state of Arkansas is turning Republican, and Jonesboro is poised to turn Republican. I've had a number of Democrats come up to me and just ask me how I was running, first as a Democrat or Republican, and when I talked to them that I'm a Republican, I've had a number of them say that they are going to come over and support me because they know who I am, they know what I stand for. Paul, a lot of this has come about over the health care reform issue, which is big in the state right now. I know the teachers are faced with it. we're faced with the private option, and a lot of decisions were made in the last few months based on data and numbers. And I think our Republicans and Democrats were looking at projections and concepts and how it might work. But in the last few months, as the Affordable Care Act has been implemented, it's not about numbers, it's about how it affects lives. And I think you can really see that apparent in how it's affected the teachers. Some of their insurance policies are doubling and tripling. And it's all based on the same formulary, which back when we were talking about the private option and how insurance would work.
Well, some people were saying how good it was going to be.
Yeah.
But
well, and absolutely. And when it came right down to, the Republicans argued it wouldn't, and we said your numbers are false. And it was really an argument over numbers. Well, the people that said it would work, now it's affected their lives. They're realizing it won't work. President Clinton, I think, was in Little Rock yesterday admitting that it won't work. And I think a big decision is going to come in February. There'll be a vote. But prior to that, there'll be several decisions, several votes that are made on how we're going to respond to the failing systems, and especially in the healthcare, how it really affects people's lives.
So specifically, though, where do you fall down on the private option? What do you think? I mean, what did you think? What do you think now?
You described it wonderfully. It's fallen down. It's fallen apart. Back when that decision was made, there were a number of run-up decisions. There was a final vote. That vote was based on numbers and projections. Mostly Republicans saying it won't work, mostly Democrats saying it will work. But some Republicans set some targets and some triggers.
It wouldn't have gotten passed if it wasn't for those Republicans.
Right, absolutely. But they set some targets and triggers that say if we don't meet those, then the plan won't go forward. October 1st is a huge date when the people start signing up. And I sat in those health meetings and the insurance commission meetings and heard Democrats and the government agencies say, we don't have the answers, we don't know how we're going to do it. So October 1st is going to be a big, it'll be difficult for them to implement that. And I think as we see more decisions made, I'm not, right now, if I'd have been there, I don't know how I would have voted had I been there based on the knowledge that we have. There's new knowledge coming out every day. I get an email across my desk every day that says this is changing.
So if you're saying you don't have enough information because things are changing. So would you vote? I guess my question would be: would you have voted no based on what you just said? That there's new stuff. Did the people not have the right amount of information at the time down there? Should it have even passed? Is it good for Arkansas? Is the private option good for Arkansas?
This was a D.C. problem that got pushed down to Arkansas, and people had to make a decision. I think had it not passed, there would have been a similar outcry for things not working correctly. I'm not going to take a position right here, right now, on how I would have voted in the past. I don't think that's productive, and I think we can start some discussions that aren't productive in moving us forward. And that's where we are. People in Jonesboro, when I talk to them, even today, people say, how do we come together to solve problems? And they don't ask Republican or Democrat. They had a huge teachers meeting yesterday at Greene County Tech. There were legislators there. They weren't talking Democrat or Republican. They were talking, how do we solve the problem? How do we move forward from where we are today? That's going to be the question.
They do have, definitely, the teachers' insurance is a big issue. It's going up a lot of places. I will say, though, with all due respect, not knowing which way you fall in the private option, especially in a Republican primary, this has been one of the most divisive, and this has divided the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
And this is something I think people want to know. So I would just ask you again, the defunding is coming up. Do you think that you will vote to defund it?
I think there is a very strong possibility that when the information comes out and people know the facts, that yes, there's a possibility that we can defund it. Now, can we defunding it and having the ability to defund it are two different questions. This is going to go in committee. Can you get it out of committee? Can you move that? It's not a line item on a budget. there are a number of line items on a number of budgets, all going through different committees. So how you defund that, if somebody can tell me how we can do that without holding up the entire human services budget, then I'm absolutely willing to go there. It's a bad
So
law.
you're willing to vote to defund it if you're given the opportunity.
If we can figure out how that happens. I haven't
Well,
heard anybody explain that to me
let me
yet.
explain to you how it happens.
Go ahead.
It doesn't get line item in committee, and in the House, for example, you only need 26 Republicans to say we're not voting on this budget. We're voting no on the budget until you bring us a budget that has Obamacare, because that's what this is, stripped out of it. So that's one way you can do it. And the same could be said, for Senate. I mean, there's a lot of senators down there that voted for this thing. They've come back. They've heard from their constituents. They're very they're very worried. Especially some of them are facing re-elections right after this fiscal session. So the bottom line is, it would be. It would be rough. I'm sure the liberal press would give a lot of these Republicans a hard time for just refusing to pass any budget that's going to provide funding for this. I mean, it's the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history.
Listen, if the question is the private option a bad law? Yes. That's not, but the question is a different question. How do you move and take a bad law and make it workable for people?
Mm-hmm.
It's no different. It's very similar, no different from what the teachers are facing right now. They're going through all of this, and they're trying to figure out how you move from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one decision. And the point you made about holding up the entire DHS budget to do that, I don't know that is a good option because of the way it affects people here in Arkansas. It has a tremendous impact on people that are in need and have needs that are tied to that human services budget. And when we go in and pull that entire budget and stop everything, I don't know that that's the productive way that the citizens of District 21 want to move forward together. I think there's a tremendous sense in our community now that we need someone who can bring people together, help us find the solutions, and move forward. And I'm just not convinced right now that blocking the entire DHS budget is the way to do that. If somebody can convince me that's the way, I'm certainly willing.
Yeah.
If we can back out of what we've done productively, that's a good thing. I think there's a good chance that the feds are going to back off of what they've done before February.
Well, yeah, and you can obviously make the argument. We're talking with Dan Sullivan. He's a Republican candidate for District 21. You can obviously make an argument that the private option wouldn't even exist if we'd have known President Obama was going to do what he did, which was, suspend the employer mandate. And so that's definitely an issue. I do have to ask, in the interest of transparency, your company, that you're CEO of, Ascent Company, were they, before you got in this race, were they pro private option? Were they lobbying in any way to get this passed?
No.
Okay.
The short answer.
Okay.
My company is independent from what I do. I was not down in, nor were the people that represent our company down in Little Rock lobbying either way.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that I've been working closely with the state on a number of issues. And about 3 years ago, the heads of several departments came to me and others who work in the healthcare industry and said the Medicaid budget is expanding too fast and we're out of money. They said, help us pull back. Well, I, in leading a couple associations, met with representatives from the state. And this year, if I remember correctly, and the report came out in July, Medicaid was growing at 1%. So it's an example of the government working with providers to achieve a common interest, to maintain the quality, maintain the care, reduce the growth, and control the budget. We can do that, but we need people. I've been in Little Rock working on that for several years. Whoever takes this seat is going to need to step in ready to go. There'll be no learning curve. The election is January the 14th. You'll step into the session February. I know the leaders of the state. I work with them on a regular basis, and I know the leaders of both parties, especially the Public Health Committee. I know the chairs, work with them closely, and that will be one of the the committees that this seat will retain and take over when we go back.
I want to switch topics real
Sure.
quick, and I appreciate you being cooperative with that long private option discussion.
It's going to continue to be a long one, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. Where do you fall down on this? I got this headline up at the ArkansasProject.com. Headline: Defunct Nordex owes taxpayers $2.3 million. Where do you come down on government picking winners and losers? Obviously, I know it's more complicated than that. It's a competitive field. But wouldn't it be better to have a better tax environment or a better incentive for all businesses than just the select few we're trying to lure here that may be lured somewhere else in the future?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you can go right back to the private option. That's picking winners and losers. The feds did that. The D.C. did that when they implemented the Affordable Care Act. Now they're excluding people.
Mm-hmm.
I think Senator Cruz started today, announced defund America or push back America.
Yeah,
let everybody
defund America.
Opt out America. Yeah,
that's what the liberals will call it. It's just defund America.
Well, it's opt out America, I think is the name of his site, where we all get opted out of Obamacare. But it's also it's similar in the teacher situation. There were people that came in at one level and came in at another level. And now it doesn't work. It doesn't work when the government tries to pick winners and losers. Free markets.
So on that basis, free markets.
Absolutely.
But on that basis, do you think government oftentimes the problem and not the solution? I mean, in your opinion?
Absolutely. That's one of the main reasons I'm running. I mean, I've engaged with businesses and small businesses. One of the reasons I worked for Ascent until March of this year and resigned at Ascent and went to work for myself in a private business because private businesses, small businesses especially, could not navigate the water. All the healthcare issues, the tax issues, they're here trying to run their business. They don't have time to be down in Little Rock navigating how things worked. And quite a number of people came to me and asked me to help them navigate the water because they're trying to run their business. I only came back to Ascent when the CEO resigned and Ascent asked me to come back and be the CEO of the company. But that's the reason I started my own business. I recognized that government picking the winners, taxation, regulation, over-regulation is stifling our economy and stopping small business from expanding. Just one more and we'll move on. I had to hire 2 new employees just to take care of government regulations and audits that we get. 2 new employees just to do that. We can't expand.
Wow.
We can't grow. We're having to hire people to do that. And that's not the way it should be.
Wow, that is you're right. I mean, the regulations, government is very, very burdensome. There's no doubt about it. Jason Tolbert has a piece that he wrote recently. The headline: 3 Republicans file for Senate. Shots begin immediately. And your opponent, John Cooper, in his campaign, Jason Tolbert writes, he threw off the gloves in his announcement. He says, as I officially begin my campaign for state senate today, I'm making a commitment to the voters that I will fight for ethics reform, do all I can. He goes, it bothers me that some candidates have played both sides of the aisle in the past and now expect to buy their way into being the Republican nominee. Our election shouldn't be held hostage. Now, he's actually speaking, I think, more about another opponent of yours, Chad Neal, who recently announced. He goes on to cite that Chad Neal has given to Democrats, Dustin McDaniel, Harold Copenhaver, and things like that, and he seems to be questioning whether or not he's truly a conservative. What is your response to that? I know you had a comment here, but I wanted to get you on record on my show.
Sure, and I appreciate that because that comment doesn't quite go far enough for me. I think people that do business support our community, and we work in the community, and business people often work with people of diverse backgrounds, whether they be minorities or Democrats or Republicans or whatever they are. We work with diverse communities, and we support that. We're neighbors. Jonesboro is a community. And when we start picking apart someone making a donation to this person or that person, I always wonder if they accept donations from Democrats. Is it only the other way around? And do you go back through there? If you're doing business, do you do business with with diverse people. Because if you do business with a Democrat and they make a lot of money because you do business with them, and now they give their money to other Democrats, how far do you chase that? We are Jonesboro can be a vibrant, strong community. We can grow tremendously, and some of these small things we're going to have to that I think are small things we're going to have to move away from. But on the other side of that, I think there's a good point in people trying to buy an election or go to the media. We often talk about the liberal media and how the liberal media does that.
And I believe Chad Neal, who I'm sure is going to be on the show soon, is buying a lot of commercials right now, or TV ads.
Yeah, and more power to him. I'm glad he can afford to do that. Amen. But the media shapes what we think, and if this election is won by someone who can shape what people think about them through the media, I think that would not be a good thing from our community. I think a lot of people in Jonesboro know me. And if they'll talk to people around them in the schools and the healthcare fields and their churches, they'll find people that know me. And I hope the election is about somebody who they have had their opinion shaped by what they know, not by what they see or read in a push card. Now,
I will say, I agree with you. Don't let the media shape, unless it's me, right? maybe, right?
Well, it depends. We'll discuss that as we go on.
Okay. Dan Sullivan, thanks for being a good sport. Thanks for coming on, running for District 21. Do you have a website or anything you'd like to give out, or Facebook or anything?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and the web. It's Sullivan Arkansas Senate. And we are also having a kind of a little meeting out at Sage Meadows tonight. For a lot of our supporters will be out there. I want to encourage anybody to come on out there.
All right.
Thank you for letting me be on.
I appreciate it, Dan. Folks, we got to go to break. Back in a minute.